Hello and welcome to Merlin's Manor. Today I'm going to be giving my thoughts on the Meadow Adventure Book expansion. Now I've not had the opportunity to review Meadow itself, so I'm also going to be giving my thoughts on the base game, along with my thoughts on the expansion, which offers a 6-game campaign, but each chapter can also be played as a standalone game. I'm going to start out with a brief gameplay overview for the base game, and then go into how the adventure book changes things up. Now, Meadow is a game that is all about building out a tableau of cards in front of you in order to try to score points. You start out with a starter card either on the leaf beetle side or on the grassland worm side. Now, each player will also pick a row of cards and gain a north card from the north deck, so you'll have 5 cards to start out with. The starter card and the east cards all have a landscape symbol on the bottom, which will be there visible for the entire game, while the rest of the cards have 1 or 2 symbols here at the top, which will be covered up when you play another card into that row. Now, in order to play a new card, you need to have all the symbols listed here in order to play that card. And then you'll play it on a column that has one of those symbols on it. Now, you can go ahead and discard 2 cards if you don't have all of the symbols in order to ignore that symbol for playing the card, but you always have to have at least one of the symbols on the card in order to play it, and then you'll play it into the column that has that matching symbol. Now, in order to acquire cards, you're going to place down one of your sticks in order to take a card that is that many spaces away from the edge as the number on the stick. When you take a card in this manner, you may play a card if you are able to meet the requirements into your tableau. Now, east cards have no requirement to play, so you can always play those on the bottom of your tableau until you've reached the maximum of 10 base cards. Now, there are 2 special types of cards that are not played into your meadow columns, but instead off to the side on roads. You start with 1 road, but you can get more throughout the game. The landscape cards go on a road. And then you also have discovery cards that have the requirement of being played on a landscape card, and you can only play 1 discovery card on any given landscape. Notice the cards have a number inside of a leaf. This is how many victory points the card will be worth for you for being in your tableau at the end of the game. Now, instead of placing out your stick next to the main game board, you can instead place it by the campfire board if there's an open space and take the action listed on the stick. The 1 allows you to grab a card from anywhere on the board, which is good if a location is blocked or you don't have the right number. The 2 gets you 2 roads. The 3 allows you to look at the top 3 cards of any of the active decks and keep 1 and discard the other 2. That's good if you don't like the options that are out there or you're looking for a specific symbol. The 4 lets you play 2 cards into your tableau. And note the 1, 2, and 3 actions do not let you play a card when taking them. There's also a question mark stick, which allows you to choose any of the 4 actions when playing by the campfire or any distance when playing by the main board. When you take a campfire action, you can also claim bonus points if you have 2 of the symbols that are next to each other in the campfire area showing anywhere in your tableau, as long as no one has claimed that combination yet. The first time you claim one of these, you place out your 2 token, and then you'll place out your 3 and finally your 4-point token. But there are not spaces for everyone to claim all 3 bonuses. Plus, if someone beats you to the combo that you're working towards, then you cannot claim it. So there's a bit of a race to claim these bonus points. Now, when everyone has played out all of their sticks, the round ends. You pass the first player marker, you move the hiker down the round track, you get your sticks back, and you start a new round. Now, midway through the game, the hiker is going to pass this hourglass marker on here, at which time you will reset the main board and sub in the north deck for the south deck. When you get to the end of the game, you'll add up all of your points on cards played into your tableau and the points from placing tokens on the campfire board, and the player with the most points wins the game. Now, when playing the adventure book, you're going to sub out for the campfire board the adventure book. And this is going to take that place of the campfire board. It's going to have a different setup for each chapter. And there's various things that are going to happen when you interact with the book, placing your sticks like you would with the campfire. Now, some rounds don't even include placing out goal tokens. The rounds that do have goal tokens take out the racing aspect, as all players can place out all of their tokens on each of the combinations of symbols. And each round has a box with new components and rules for playing that round. One of the games has you place a stream in the middle of your tableau area, And then you decide which side of the stream you want to place cards. Aside your cards on matter for where the symbols are, for both for scoring extra points on your stream as well as for chasing the symbol goals on the adventure book. Another gives you a track to place at the bottom of your tableau area with symbols that can only be fulfilled directly above that section of track in order to move the hiker, which will get you bonus points for each one that you fulfill. You can skip over sections of the track, but then you won't score points for those ones. This one also forces you to place out your landscape cards from left to right. Another game has a rotating compass dial which reveals different numbers which allow you to move up on a track either 1 or 2 spaces when you play a stick of that number next to the adventure book. The compass also reveals different symbols that are paired with 3 static symbols that are drawn at the beginning of the game and always stay visible. This means that if you're trying to claim a pairing, you have to do it before the round ends and the dial spins either to the left or the right. And in this one, instead of placing out your tokens to claim goals, you're going to be flipping over balloons based on where those symbols are on that dial. Though you do still have to place out your tokens if you advance high enough on the track. One of the rounds has you focus more on building up your columns in order to get better actions on the adventure book board, while adding special bonus tiles and high value but hard to achieve cards. This also comes with a catch in that you choose a column each round to be the one you are using to place your hiker out that round to be able to claim the bonus actions with a special binocular action in the next round. And the higher up you are able to place your hiker by choosing the taller column, the more powerful the action is going to be. But then you will not be able to use that column in future rounds to place a tower in order to place your hiker. The most powerful actions are at the height of 6 cards, but that's not easy to get to, especially if you keep using your 3 high and 4 high stacks in the early to mid game and then have to work another column up. Many of the games have additional ways to score points, and they all have ways to score stars towards winning the campaign, in addition to giving the first player 2 stars and the second player 1 star. The cards that are used in the various rounds can be added to the deck for future games that are played with the base game, and we just mix them in even for the rest of the campaign, as the rules do not make it clear if they could be added in immediately or just when playing with the base game. And they didn't seem like they would break the game in any way by being in the deck, so we just straight up added them. So now let's get into my game review, starting with the art and components. And I must say the art for Meadow is great. You have beautiful, eye-catching drawings of various animals, buildings, and landscapes that really draw you in and make the game so enjoyable to look at. The adventure book adds more beautiful cards as well as a book that has simple artwork as the focus, and it seems to be more basic and functional as far as the artwork goes. And the components are just really nice with the adventure book, as the various dials are magnetic, so they lock into place, and the book itself is very sturdy. The game holds up well, the components function well, and again, the art on the cards is just amazing. I really appreciate the art and components for Meadow and the adventure book. Now let's talk about the ease of play. The original game is fairly easy to learn to play. It's mostly just matching symbols in order to play cards, and the basic place a stick, gain a card based on the number on that stick, then play a card is easy to learn. Now, utilizing the campfire board is a little more complex, as you have to learn the 4 actions there, and remember that you don't get to play a card like you do by default when interacting with the main board. The goals are fairly intuitive, as well as you see the various pairings on the campfire board, and if there's an open space between them, you can claim it when taking a campfire action. The adventure book swaps out the normal campfire rules for the new rules and is a bit more complex, especially with the later games. But it's still not terribly complex in the rules, and you're only adding in the rules for that particular game in lieu of the campfire rules, so it's not too much. It definitely increases the depth of strategy as you add in the new rules, though, as they really cause you to have to play the game a bit differently. And so since I'm already starting to lean into talking about the gameplay, let's jump into my review of the gameplay for Meadow and the adventure book expansion. Now, Meadow has quickly become a game that my wife and I really enjoy playing, even with just the base game. The gameplay itself is simple, but there is an aspect of planning ahead which adds some decent strategy to the game. There's also a tactical nature to this game, as you are constantly having to adjust plans based on cards that get taken and the new cards that come out, as well as cards that you may get blocked out from being able to take until the next round because of the sticks that are out there next to the board that you and the other players have played out. There's also a decision space between using your sticks to do one of the actions, but foregoing the playing out of a card. And then you discard 2 cards to make up for a symbol sometimes, so that's a decision that you have to make. Or even 4 cards to make up for 2 symbols, or just keep trying to find and place out the necessary symbols. Building up your tableau can be very satisfying as you gain the symbols you need to play higher value cards and get the right symbols out to place out one of your bonus tokens. There's also an interesting strategy when it comes to how many bottom cards you play out, as they take up a turn while not getting you any points for playing them, but they allow you to have more symbols showing in order to play more of the higher point cards. Often you don't want to play out all 10, but sometimes you just need to in order to be able to get the symbols you need. And other times you might be towing the line between having too few columns while trying to maximize scoring points with almost every turn. Overall, I really enjoy the puzzle that Meadow offers each time you play. Keep in mind that there can be some luck involved when it comes to the combinations of symbols that come out, but generally that can be mitigated through using the action that allows you to draw 3 cards from a deck and choose 1 to keep, and the book lets you know how many cards with each symbol are in each deck, at least with the base game cards. So if you know you want a house symbol, then you know your best bet is go to the west deck and look for it there. The game also ramps up after the midway point, as the west and south decks have cards that typically score 1 to 2 points, with a few that score 3, and requires usually 1 or 2 symbols at most, 3, and often the symbols are easier to come by. Then the south deck gets switched out for the north deck, which has 3 to 4 point value cards and requires more symbols and harder to come by symbols in order to play those cards. Plus you have the deer symbol cards, which end a column as you cannot play any future cards on that column. I really like how the switching out of the decks gives a way for the game to ramp up without having cards in the early game that are too hard to play. Now let's talk about what the adventure book does for the gameplay. The adventure book adds a greater depth of strategy and things to think about for each game. It takes a rather simple game and raises it up to a whole new level. It also adds to the options of what you will focus on to score points and get powerful bonuses, with many interesting choices to make. Some of the games have you decide when you are going to pivot from one track to another, or when you're going to skip certain bonuses to get to the others, which can be very meaningful decisions to make. And while the races to score your bonus goals are taken out of many of the chapters, they incentivize you to race to gain first pick of cards or other powerful scoring opportunities. It is also great that you can choose to play each chapter as a one-off or as part of a 6-game campaign, because sometimes it can be difficult to get a group to commit to playing through a campaign together. So as far as those times go, it's good that you can just play any one of the chapters as a one-off game, but it's also good to be able to play a campaign together where each game gives you ways to score stars to get an overall campaign score at the end. And each board offers a unique way of gaining stars in addition to stars for winning the game. So in playing the campaign, you have additional things to focus on and accomplishing for the sake of the campaign, that you want to be careful that they don't distract you too much from scoring points in that game. And so there's some interesting decisions that come along with the campaign as well in that way. I also find the book actions to be much more interesting than the simple campfire goals, which are quite basic. Certainly a preferable place to start, as it can help onboard people into the game. But once you have the general gameplay down, I would highly recommend implementing the adventure book, if for nothing else other than it is an upgrade to the campfire. Not only does the adventure book add to the depth of strategy, but it also adds to the overall replayability of the game. And so let's jump in and talk about replayability at this time. Meadow itself is quite replayable due to the many combinations of cards and goals that will come out, requiring a different strategy every game. As I mentioned earlier, sometimes you can play a very tight game with just 6 or 7 columns, and other times you'll need to spread out to the full 10 columns just to be able to play some of those late game high value cards that come out. The adventure book offers 6 new ways for the campfire area to work, and most of them have an additional thing to focus on overall in the gameplay as well. This alone basically multiplies the replayability of Meadow by at least 6 times, since each chapter changes up the way the game is played significantly, while still keeping the basic foundation of Meadow. I cannot imagine playing this game without either the adventure book or the downstream expansion, just because they both level up the gameplay and the replayability. It's just a shame that you can't play with both expansions, though I do think the downstream combined with the adventure book might just be a bit too much anyway. Now let's talk about the theme of the game. Meadow feels quite thematic when you think about how the cards relate to each other. In order to play that bird, you have to have a worm or a bug that it eats. Or in order to place a fence, you need a house to put that fence around. Late game, you're going to have predators that are going to want to hunt wildlife. The prerequisites for playing cards just make sense with what you are playing. And so you must build out the right habitats for the things that you want to attract, in essence. And the campfire may be a little bit more abstract, but basically you are gathering around the campfire and telling about the things you saw in order to score points. The adventure book literally has a different theme for each chapter, and some chapters feel a little more abstract in how the gameplay relates to the chapter's theme, but none of this takes away from the overall thematic feel of the game, and at times adds a little to that thematic feel. Now let's get into my final thoughts. Meadow was already in my top 25 games and at number 21 back when I did that list towards the end of last year. And if the adventure book were to do anything for Meadow in the overall rankings, it would definitely help it go up. Overall, I give Meadow a 9 out of 10, and the adventure book gets a solid 9 out of 10 as well, maybe even a 9.5 out of 10. I don't often rate expansions with a number because it is kind of difficult to really place a rating in how they add to the base game. There have been a few over the years that elevate the game so much that I feel they deserve to specifically get a rating, and this is one I certainly feel is among that list of expansions that is so good it deserves to be rated. This is not an expansion I'd recommend starting out with, as it does increase the complexity a bit as well as the depth of strategy, but it is also one that I doubt I would ever play without, except when introducing people to the game and for their first few games as they're getting used to how the base game plays. Other than that, of course, when playing with Downstream, which I would also say is an expansion to add in after at least several plays of the base game. Now, I know this review has not focused on Downstream. I think both expansions have their place, but overall, if I were to choose to have just one of the expansions over the other, it would be the adventure book, because it adds just so much extra replayability and depth to the game. Downstream does also add some depth to the game, but probably on the level of the first chapter or two of the adventure book. But then the adventure book outpaces Downstream in depth as you get into the later chapters. Plus, Downstream basically adds 1 or 2, if you count the alternate side of the board, ways to add to the game. And the adventure book adds 6 very different ways that change up the game so much. Meadow is a great game that I highly recommend if you like nature-themed games that focus on building out a tableau of cards. It provides a basic engine, if you can call it that, where you are gaining more ways to be able to match symbols with cards to get higher value cards as you go. I also highly recommend the adventure book to add to the depth of strategy and replayability after you've played the base game at least several times. And not to downplay Downstream too much, because it is a solid addition as well, but overall I feel the adventure book adds more value to the base game of Meadow. As always, I hope you've enjoyed this review that has given you something to think about as to whether Meadow is a good game for you, whether you want to get the adventure book, and I hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope you'll check out some more of my videos. Subscribe if you haven't already done so. But until next time, I hope you have a great week, and keep on gaming.